like if you've been feeling fearful, if you've been feeling that scared, like that's a sign from the universe to like lean more into that power. Welcome back to the Astrology Report, this time for May 1st through May 7th of 2023. My name is Cam White. Make sure you like this video if you enjoy this content. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to stay in touch with all of the current astrological things going on in the sky. Anyway, we have quite a bit going on this week, so let's go ahead and get straight to it. We're starting Monday off with the moon making a square to Venus and making an opposition to Neptune. So there's a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of being a little bit overwhelmed. But the two major things that we've got going on Monday is the Mercury Cazimi and Pluto stationing retrograde. Now, I feel like if you're going to be online, everyone's going to blow the whole Pluto retrograde thing out of proportion. That's not to say that it's not important. It's just the astrology world, and it's not even really the astrology world. It's like the spiritual community. So like the crystal girls, the tarot people, they really blow like the most menial transits completely out of proportion, in my opinion. So we'll discuss that a little bit more deeper. But on Monday, the moon's going to be in Virgo. Excuse me. Making an opposition first actually making a square to Venus, then going opposite Neptune. And so I talk a lot about the moon in Virgo being good for being like analytical, being very detailed, cleaning things. The problem is with the moon in Virgo making a square to Venus in Gemini is you can't be overly picky about like certain situations. Like I look at Venus in Gemini as being very social. I talked a little bit about Venus in Gemini, wanting to be stimulated, wanting to, be fun, have fun. But as the moon squares Venus, there's this like like just because not everything is perfect and not everything is right, that doesn't mean you can't have a fun time. And that doesn't mean that like it's like it kills the fun when you're overly nitpicky about everything. And so there's a little bit of this like, oh, I'm here having this good time, but oh, I feel this way, or this isn't perfect and this is cringe. And so it's a little like getting too lost in your head about certain things. But after the moon makes a square to Venus, it's going to go opposite Neptune, where something that we'll be talking about here this week is Venus will make a square to Neptune. And a lot of the Venus square Neptune stuff is like overstimulation. Like there's just too much going on. There's too much noise. It's too confusing. It's like when you go to a festival and you're already kind of like on your drugs or whatever. And it's like, well, there's this stage and there's that stage and there's this and there's that. And there's someone doing the glow thing in front of you. And it's just kind of like, whoa, hold on a second. Let's chill out. So I feel like on Monday, it's like trying to pinpoint the exact location to direct your energy, but feeling very overwhelmed with it. And as the moon goes opposite Neptune, it's like, you can't, it's like, okay, moon square Venus is like criticizing what is fun and what's around you. But the moon opposite Neptune is kind of like, well, like there's no solution. It's like everyone's got a criticism of like how the government runs or how this world works, but no one's got actual like good solutions to address like the pinpoint issues. Everyone's got Band-Aid solutions that don't really work or address the root cause of stuff. And I kind of look at that as like moon squaring Venus opposite Neptune is like, it's going to be really easy to criticize, but actually pinpointing like getting to the root cause of the problem and creating a solution around that may be a little bit difficult. So on Monday, you might feel like a little emotionally overwhelmed. But what I do like about Monday is that we're going to be having the Mercury Cazimi. This is the halfway point of the Mercury retrograde. Mercury's interior conjunction. This is when Mercury is in between the sun and the earth. This is the light bulb moment. Like Mercury goes into shadow. That was a couple weeks ago. You have your plans. You have like your, oh, I'm thinking about doing this. I'm thinking about doing that. Or maybe you start something on accident. Mercury goes retrograde and you realize, oh, there's been a problem. There's been a delay. There's been a rethink. I've got to review this process a little bit more. There's been a miscommunication. Well, the Mercury Cazimi is like not only offering insight as to what the problem was, but also the solution. So like, for example, maybe you're in a relationship and you misspoke something to your partner and you didn't even realize it, right? But the Mercury Cazimi is when they come up to you and say, hey, you said this and I have a problem with it, or whatever that is. That's what this kind of looks like. And so Mercury is kind of being purified by the sun here. So when we talk about like our ideas, our thoughts, our plans, like if you've been like, for me, this hasn't been the worst Mercury retrograde ever. It's felt very slow. Like I've not wanted to do anything at all. Like I've just been like, nope, don't want to do it. Just want to sit down and do nothing and scroll. But as Mercury conjoins the sun, there is a sort of solution. There is a sort of insight that comes about on Monday. And the moon in Virgo, I think, is great for that. Like, all right, cool. I have the plans. I have the details. The moon squaring Venus going opposite Neptune, though, is like, you can't just like hit the floor running like, oh, here's the solution now. Let's do X, Y, and Z. It's kind of like just gather up that information just for a minute. But the other thing is Pluto goes retrograde. So on one level, what I think you're going to see a lot with the Pluto retrograde stuff is now that Pluto's been there for a minute, like you see a lot of the AI stuff. You're now starting to see a lot of bigger voices talk about banning AI or having a pause on it, whatever that means. And I'm not really like on anyone's team here with this, but I would imagine there being a lot more of that pushback against some of the automation, some of the digital stuff that we're going to be seeing going on, as well as I've been thinking a lot about like decentralization and how that is, I think, the best way to go about the Aquarius energy. I know I've been very negative about it, but I think a really good example is like the Tucker Carlson situation. Like he got fired from Fox. Everyone's wondering what he's doing, but it's one of those situations where, and like this isn't like like I love Tucker Carlson or I hate Tucker Carlson. Like I just don't have like emotional attachment to that. But I've just been listening to some, media people's like opinions about it. And what I find interesting is that like for him and his best solution would be to go completely independent. Fox News wants to like change certain things, and they were like Tucker Carlson was like their biggest moneymaker. And so now that they're losing that, he can go to whatever he wants, but he also is a liability for a lot of other reasons, right? But he's in one of those positions where, you see it time and time again, people kind of going away from a mainstream perspective and going a little bit more of an independent route, a decentralized route. And so I kind of like that situation as an analogy for Pluto retrograding in Aquarius, because Pluto's about power and fear and control. And something that you're seeing is a lot of these old power structures trying to hold on to that power that is really no longer there as people go more and more away from that. Like, for some people that looks like building their own community, the freaking community garden stuff, doing their own tech, not being a part of a centralized system. And so I think as Pluto goes retrograde, there's more of an awareness around that of like, okay, now that I see what this could be, for example, like a lot of people are now like talking about a central bank digital currency. That was not a thing like last year. I was talking about it, but now more and more people are starting to see how this is all kind of going. And so I think as Pluto goes retrograde, what I talked about on my Patreon, so my patrons know about this on my monthly rising sign horoscopes. Yes, if you did not know, I do a monthly horoscope for each zodiac sign over on my Patreon. You should check it out. It supports the channel, supports me. But it's kind of like a do or die moment. Like Pluto's been in Aquarius for a second, but now it's time to choose. Are you going to lean into that power or are you going to lean into that fear? And there's, trade-offs for every decision, but this is one of those things, like if you've been feeling fearful, if you've been feeling that scared, like that's a sign from the universe to like lean more into that power. Like you're never going to, like, if you cower in fear, well, you just solidified a belief that you have that you're not powerful. You're not worthy. You're not capable. But if you listen to that fear, or not really just listen to it, but if you acknowledge that fear and do it anyway and you push through, you're now solidifying a different belief that you are capable. And I find something that I find frustrating about the wider spiritual community in general, and just the self-help people and the psychology people, is there's so much talk about things that solidify negative beliefs about you. Like, again, I've talked about this before. It's always controversial because I think people just get triggered by it so much. But there is your victim. You have been a victim, right? But then there's also a victim story or victim mentality. And a lot of people say, oh, like when they say, oh, don't be a victim, they're like, well, I have been victimized and why you're victim blaming me now? And it's not really about that. Like, you're allowed to be I don't want to say you're allowed to be a victim. That's a weird way to phrase it. But like, we all have been victimized by something. But it's up to you to whether or not you allow that story that you've created, not even that you've created, that you've told yourself about it, to define and dictate everything about your life. And that's up to you. A lot of people don't understand that that is a choice that you make. It's not like, oh, I can just, wake up one day and decide something different. I mean, it is kind of that easy, but it's one of those things where you have to acknowledge, you have to ask yourself, does this belief serve me? Or does it harm me? If you have a belief that says like, oh, I'm never going to be able to, make it past this. I'm only stuck in this situation. It can only be this. Here's my label. Here's my title. That is a story that you're creating to limit yourself. there's countless examples of people in history and today not letting those labels affect or dictate what their future is. And so I kind of look at Pluto retrograde as a great opportunity to be like, okay, I'm going to lean into something I'm scared of. I'm going to let the power kind of come through me and go against that grain. Like, think of decentralization, but on like a belief spectrum. Like, there's a certain belief that, society wants you to have. And if you don't think that there are profit incentives for you to believe a certain way, you are extremely fooled. They want you to believe that you are weak. They want you to believe that you are not capable enough, because that allows for their authority to dictate your life. If you allow yourself to believe in an alternative, and if you allow yourself, and it takes faith, it takes courage, but if you allow yourself to lean into the opposite and say, no, I am capable, I am worthy, I can do whatever it is that I want, it's like a decentralized mode of believing, going against the grain of what society wants you to believe. And when I say wants you, it's not like they're like, here, this is what we'd like you to believe today. But it's these small influences, from the digital media scape to how the schooling system is, to how you eat, to how everything just is. And it takes a lot of awareness to actually see all of that. And not all of that takes time, but it's just one step. Like, something that I love about all of the personal development stuff is it all comes back down to taking one step at a time. You're not going to just, maybe you're that one example of someone doing this, but you're not just going to wake up one day and completely change your life. But if you just take one step at a time, and this is why, again, I think like the whole Jordan Peterson type message of just cleaning your room, that is one step that you can take to making that difference. I know I'm kind of just ranting on this kind of point, but it's in this world and in this society, things just seem to be getting like corroding. They're degrading. We're not built and designed to live in this world that we're in, and it hasn't been serving anybody. And it's not until you take your own charge and you take your own accountability for what you can do. And it's not until that moment where you can actually start to make changes in your life, because the change is not going to come from without. It's going to come from within. So I really recommend you meditate on that, because like, I don't make these astrology videos for you to twiddle your thumbs and be like, oh, Mercury's retrograde, this is why my life sucks. Cool, I have an excuse. I make these astrology videos because I'm so passionate about like people getting their fucking lives together. And that can mean so many different things. And the reason being is like, this world, this society is not built for us. Like, and if we want to make it different, we have to be the change that we want to see. So I make these astrology videos because here is a fucking awesome map that the universe or God, whatever you want to say, designed to give us a roadmap and a guide of what is going on, where are the downfalls, and where are the solutions. And so I don't make this to say, oh, Mercury's retrograde, this is why you're like, allowed. It's a good reasoning. For example, like if you're trying to make a road trip and your check engine light comes on, like, yeah, you can blame your check engine light for not being able to make that trip. Like, that's like Mercury retrograde. Oh, something went wrong I wasn't prepared for. But if you knew in advance that your check engine light was going to go on before you took that journey, you would have went to the mechanic shop and got that fixed. And then they would have said, hey, something's wrong with your engine. It's going to take a week or two. And you go, okay, cool. Maybe I won't make this trip during this time. And you save yourself a lot of money, a lot of stress, a lot of time. And so I make these astrology videos because for a lot of different reasons, but it's really just to say, like, you guys are so much more capable of whatever it is, like of literally anything. And we have a self-deprecating society where we just, like, it's like humorized to see the worst in ourselves. And I kind of fucking hate self-deprecating humor. Like, when I was young, I thought it was funny, but now I'm just sick of it. Like, it's almost disrespectful to me. Like, can you stop making fun of yourself? Like, stop that shit. Like, it literally drives me crazy. But why I make these videos is like, there's not a lot of voices out there, especially in the astrology world. So much of it is just like, yeah, this is happening. Yeah, this is happening. Yeah, life's happening to me, not for me. And that's a victim mentality. Like, if you just think life is happening to you, you could totally live that way, but it's not going to be fun. And that is a choice that you make. Life can be happening for you, depending on the mindset. Like, something I've been really meditating on lately is like, we are so good at being like, oh, I want to start something new. But what if this happens? But what if this happens? What if this goes bad? What if I don't make enough money? What What if it goes the opposite way? What if it is better than you ever imagined? What if you're more successful than you ever imagined? What if it's easier? What if it's more fun than you ever imagined? Why don't we think that way? And so I know I'm just kind of ranting on a point that's not necessarily embedded in here, but with this Pluto and Aquarius stuff, like, look at how this world is degraded in society. And do you want to go along with that? Or do you want to make choices for yourself? Sorry, Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. It's ruled by darkness. And that's not to say, oh, you're an Aquarius, you're full of darkness or whatever. I think there's a susceptibility to that type of stuff. But I look at this as like, we're human beings. We are life. We are given life by the sun. I think there's a lot to say about the sun, which is the opposite, the individual. And a lot of people, again, I'm very on board with our communities need to be stronger. You need a team around you. But if your team is nothing but weak people that hate themselves and they can't pick themselves up by their bootstraps, and I know people hate that saying, but the world's not going to offer you a helping hand. If you want to do something, you've got to do it for yourself. And the whole, the pick yourself up by your bootstrap stuff is so toxic. It's like, well, what else are you going to do? Just sit in the fucking mud? Okay, sit in the mud. Be there. Be a degenerate. Be, self-loathing. Or get your shit together. And it's hard. None of this is easy. No one said it was going to be easy. And handle it your fucking self. And life's going to throw bullshit at you because that's what life does. But it's up to you to develop a mentality to overcome that. And you know what that does? That makes you have respect for yourself. That makes you somebody worth admiring and looking up to. That gives you confidence. That gives you security and strength. Why? Like, again, the whole pick yourself up by your bootstrap stuff is toxic. It's like, okay, then be a bitch. That's no one's stopping you from doing that, but no one's going to look up to you. You're not going to encourage any sort of motivation out of people. People are going to see the worst in you. You're going to see the worst in yourself. Or I could look at you and say, hey, you might be in a bad position, but for me, when I look at you guys, I only see the best of who you are and what you could become. And my narrative is stronger than yours because I see the best while you only see the worst. Who does that help? Doesn't help you. And I see the best in you because I see the best in myself because I figured out what I was capable of doing, and I'm learning that every single day. And I think it's worth your while to challenge yourself and see what you're capable of doing. And I know people are going to have disagreement in the comments. Go for it. Justify why you're doing what you're doing. But instead of justifying, I would allow yourself to just think critically. So I'm done. Going into Tuesday. Not much is going on Tuesday. It's just the moon going into Libra. Not a big deal. Look, I think it'll be a little bit easier. Not so I think after the Mercury Cazimi, it's we get a lot of solutions, but then on Tuesday, it's pretty chill. The moon will make a trine to Pluto, cool, not the biggest deal. But the moon's not really doing anything. It's in Libra, finding a little bit of balance, finding a little bit of peace, finding a little bit of harmony, maybe hanging out with people, socializing a little bit, just feeling pretty good. And I would enjoy that while that lasts because we have this eclipse this week. There's a lot going on with that. We get into Wednesday. The moon, while it's in Libra, will make a square to Mars and trine Venus. So this is a little crunchy. The moon in Libra squaring Mars in Cancer is you're not going to make everyone happy. You're just not. And that was something that took me a long time to figure out too, especially as a YouTuber. I will say 90% of my comments are really positive. I truly love it, you guys. And sometimes I get I'll get negative comments that are really good criticism. They come from the place of respect, which I also really enjoy. Although that, triggers my own self-deprecating belief stuff. And I have to work on that, right? I'm not perfect. I'm on this path too. But there's times where there's just something, but it's nothing but negative comments. And I can, put the whole world on a silver platter for you, and people are still going to be upset about it. And so what I've learned is you can't make everyone happy. So the only thing I can do is be, true to who I am, authentic to who I am, and everyone will, either take it or leave it. Some people, don't take it, and then they want to address me that I'm the issue or whatever. I'm bringing this up because the moon in Libra making the square to Mars in Cancer is Mars is in the superior position to the moon here. And the moon in Libra loves to cater to people. That's a big reason why I suffer from this stuff because I'm a moon in Libra. I genuinely care about other people. It's in my 11th house of friends and community, and it's on my midheaven. I genuinely have a lot of care for relationships and other people and not being all the way harsh, even though I know I can be. But that Mars in Cancer is if you're trying to make everyone happy, you're going to be fucking miserable. Like, not everyone's going to be happy. And I think this moon in Libra squaring Mars is kind of like, if you're trying to just cater and serve to everybody, it's not going to work. They're still going to be grumpy. They're still going to nitpick. So don't worry about who you can't make happy. As the moon makes that square to Mars on Wednesday, that feeling comes up, but then it leaves and it starts to trine Venus and Gemini. Hang out and talk and connect with the people that you can make happy. And when I say can make happy, it's not like you're just like, being a clown for them or whatever, but more so like, who are the people that are listening to your message? Who are the people that like you feel comfortable with, that accept you rather than like, nitpick you on everything? Like that moon in Libra trining Venus and Gemini is like, you know what? I'm not going to listen to this. I'm not going to listen to the, the haters or, people that just want to be grumpy all day long. I'm going to hang out with the people that, inspire me, that are fun to be with, that accept me and I accept them. So Wednesday's like, again, if you're trying to serve everybody and everything, and again, like on a more personal level, like if you're just doing things more isolated, more by yourself, like you're not going to win every single battle. Like the moon in Libra squaring Mars in Cancer is like, if you're trying to just make this balancing act and like, everything's perfect and even and flat, you're just going to get frustrated because like it's just Mars in Cancer. Like Mars in Cancer is like hangry. Like we're hungry, we're upset, we're little babies. Like it's so funny to me whenever I get like, when I learned about hanger, like just something unlocked in me where I was like, wow, I do get really fucking angry when I'm not fed and I'm not aware of it. Now that I'm aware of it, I'm way better and being like, oh, I'm just a little bit anal because I haven't ate anything. But then that moon trines Venus and it's like, do something fun. Like for me, I'm so typically work oriented that like lately I've been like, what can I do that's fun for me? Like I haven't, and especially here in Denver in the winter, like I just get too like in my room or whatever. Like I went out and I went frisbee golf barefoot and it was super fucking fun when I should have been maybe doing something, but I was like, I need to go and be in the sunlight or whatever. So that's what Wednesday's looking like. We get to Thursday. The moon is going to go opposite Jupiter and then it will enter Scorpio and square Pluto. This is where the not so much fun stuff begins. But then we also have Venus squaring Neptune. And the deal is with this, with Venus squaring Neptune, like what I was trying to talk about is there's just a lot of overstimulation. Like Venus and Gemini squaring Neptune reminds me of like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Like you're going to the casino, you're on drugs, you're just like, everyone's a lizard and this is a little bit too much. And it's one of those things too, where you don't realize what it is that you actually want until you like dive too deep into the things that you don't want. Like, and you have to ask deeper questions. Like by this point, actually by May 4th, that will be my 6 months being sober, which I've still been enjoying. And now that I'm at the 6 month mark, I've been like having like debates in my head and stuff like that. And, I wanted to make it to 6 months. Maybe I definitely don't want to be the stoner that I was. Maybe I pick things back up. Maybe I do a little microdose. Maybe I don't. I don't know. That's my business. I wanted to make it to 6 months, but maybe I keep going. But what that's helped me learn is like, there is something that I wanted that I got out of weed, alcohol, drugs, or whatever. And as I've gotten off of them, I've realized that like what I actually wanted was something different. And I thought I wanted, to be high but what I really wanted was to like to disassociate and to, calm down my nerves and not be so distracted. Like for me, I'm just all over the place all the time. Like weed always helped me like concentrate and just kind of like dull down. And rather than using a drug for that, I've been forced to like do that on my own. And I look at Venus squaring Neptune as kind of like feeling that overwhelming, like feeling that overstimulation, like feeling like I wanted to enjoy something, but this isn't it's not what I'm getting out of it. And that was happening for me. Like I wasn't getting what I actually wanted out of it. So I found a different solution. So on Thursday, you're going to probably feel a little bit overwhelmed. Okay. That's also true because the moon will go opposite Jupiter at first. So there is this kind of like, I don't know, like the moon in Libra trying to again balance everything out. Jupiter in Aries is like, but I just want to go. And moon in Libra is like, but what about this and that? And so there's like a lot of like internal debating going on Monday, but then the moon goes into Scorpio and we start that lunar eclipse. The good news is this is the very last lunar eclipse in Scorpio we get for another 9 years. Okay. But this is one last dump. This is one last, like the analogy I was using on my monthly horoscopes was, it's like the toilet's been clogged for a long time and we're just hitting it with that plunger and it finally just goes. And when you have like a real clogged toilet just full of shit and then you unclog it and then there's like shit around the bowl and everything, it's really gross. Like that's what this reminds me of. I know that's a little graphic, but it's Scorpio stuff. We're either talking about genitals, buttholes, or poop. That's just how it goes. So anyway, But the moon's going to go into Scorpio, and it's going to go in the South Node. There's more to release. There's more to get rid of. There's something that is draining. There's something that is, and it's Scorpio. It's holding on. Like, it's one of those things where, like, I love looking up the spiritual meaning of, like, anything. Like, spiritual meaning for constipation. And, like, I might be wrong about this, but I would imagine online it's like you're holding on to too many things. You need to let go. And like I think of that for like this moon in Scorpio on the South Node. And this is before the eclipse, okay? The moon will conjoin the South Node before the eclipse. So there's this like realizing you're holding on to something and that it's not serving you. It's holding you back. Like, do you know how good it feels to take a big, massive dump sometimes? Like where it's just like, it's spiritual. I'm talking way too much about taking shits, but it really is like your morning dump is like, in my opinion, like it's like almost like a spiritual thing for me. I'm like, I get to release everything, start the day fresh. But this is what this looks like. And it's like, what are you holding on to? Why are you stressed? What are you afraid to let go of? And this is Scorpio stuff. It's like out of fear. It's out of pain. It's out of sorrow. And I think as the moon goes on top of the South Node, there's this level of like realizing that. Like, have you ever realized what you were holding on to something in the past and just being like, why am I holding on to that? Like, you can be justified in anything. Like, we're human beings. We can justify goddamn just about anything. But you have to ask, again, is that serving you or is that or is it harming you? And let's say, like I was just thinking about this today, after my dad passed away, he got married. Before he passed away, he got married to this woman that I could call a lot of words. And she really made that whole situation extremely difficult. And I think the twist of the knife in my gut was, even though she'd only known my dad for like a year or two, my dad was a firefighter. He got a service flag, right? Like they fold up the American flag. She took that. And I was thinking about that today of just like that's just the disrespect on my family, on my father, of not letting his own son take his service flag. And you've known this guy for a year and like fucked over his kids. And it's one of those things where I was thinking about that and I still had all this resentment and this anger. And I'm like, I'm completely justified in that. But when I think about that, I get so angry and I get so upset. And then I don't necessarily spiral, but then, like my cortisol raises, my hormones change because of it. And it's not helping me. And so something I realized is like, I've got to let go of that. And I'm not going to be able to do it tomorrow. It's probably going to take some time because a lot of that is grief related. And like I'm trying to tell you guys, like all of this stuff takes time. You have to take one step. And even just that acknowledgement, like it's the same thing like AA or NA. It's like just acknowledging that you have a problem is the first fucking step. Like some of you can't even acknowledge that. But when you're actually truthful and honest to yourself and you have some self-awareness, that's the first step. And you might be on that first step for a long time, but just you're there though. Like you're making progress. And for me, like on this Thursday day, like I've still got shit I got to get rid of. I'm so fucking far from perfect. But again, I fucking love astrology is because it's giving me a roadmap as to how I can better myself. Because this world is not designed to better me. I have to do it. And there's certain things that are better for other people and there's certain things that are not good for me. And so I look at Thursday as like, as the moon goes into Scorpio, it goes on the South Node, there's this draining energy. It's exhausting. It's painful. It's full of sorrow. But that's like a wake-up call, like to let go of it, to change something. Like if you have the South Node going over your ascendant, I've realized this not only in my life, but in my client's life is like you get tired, you get exhausted, and you're taking naps. And in my opinion, that's your body telling you like there's something up. Like you should be full of energy. You should be full of life. You should be full of vitality. And if that South Node's going over your ascendant, you're feeling drained, exhausted, well, if like, what are you ingesting? What are you putting into yourself? Like for me, that was the kind of gateway to my whole like health journey that I'm still on. Was like, I was 23, 24 years old taking naps. And I was like, I should be like cokehead level energy on everything. And so I did more research and I realized what my problems were and I started purging things out. And that's like the recipe to the South Node is like, if you're feeling drained, if you're feeling exhausted, if just holding on to something just tires you. Like think of a pull-up bar. If you're just hanging from a pull-up bar for a long time, like if you just do that for a long time, it's going to get really tiring and exhausting until you just need to let go. What do you need to let go? And I think on Thursday, you're going to get the insight for that. But it's not until we get to Friday where we actually have the eclipse. So we get to Friday, Cinco de Mayo. Again, I acknowledge the weirdest holidays. I only know it because it's my mom's birthday. But anyway, we get the moon going opposite Mercury while it's in Scorpio, and Mercury's retrograde. Venus will sextile Jupiter. We get the lunar eclipse in Scorpio. Then the moon will go opposite Uranus and trine Mars. So a lot of band-aids being ripped off is the way I'd put it. As the moon goes opposite in Scorpio, goes opposite Mercury, there's like a, Mercury's retrograde, you got to do this. And, this is a big part of the change that we're going through, and it's not going to be fun. What I do like is Venus is sextiling Jupiter. There is some confidence coming up here. Like, you can make it fun. Like, try to make it fun for yourself. Like, again, I think a couple weeks ago, I talked about something being like, oh, you got to make all these changes and it could be so bad. But like, how can you make it enjoyable? Like, how can you make it luxurious and relaxing? And I look at Venus and Gemini sextiling Jupiter and Aries as like, look at it as fun. Like and that is all up to perspective shift that you are totally allowed and capable of doing. But then the moon will actually get eclipsed. Boom, Friday in the middle of the day, we got that eclipse. A lot of this is peeling a Band-Aid off. And a lot of this too is built up stuff. Like the thing is with an eclipse, it's like an emergency situation. It's like, oh my God, this is happening. Oh my God, I have to take care of this. Oh my God. And then after eclipse season, you kind of go like, why did that feel like such a big deal when it really maybe wasn't? But I think it's a great opportunity to look at something and like not ignore it. Like you can't ignore an emergency. And so this is that Scorpio stuff. There's some pain. Like, again, I was thinking about the Taurus risings and Scorpio risings and how like, if you're in a relationship, maybe you just need to fucking get it out. Like, again, maybe I know a couple of people that are like, I'm ready to end this relationship, but I know other few people that it's like, there's these problems that need to be addressed in the relationship. And maybe this is the time to do it. And it's not going to be fun. I would advise not turning it into a fight, but like, sometimes you're just like, hey, I've got this pain. I've got to vent. I've got to like be open and honest. And it's scary to be vulnerable, but it needs to happen. The moon will go opposite Uranus. It's not that like, it's not that, look, when you've got to make massive change, you can't expect everything to just go smooth and simple. Like the moon after this eclipse going opposite Uranus is like, actions have consequences, and those could be very destabilizing and it could be very uprooting. So that's how I look at this eclipse is like, maybe you have to purge something out. You have to be honest. And that really shakes things up. But that's, what has to happen, right? But then afterwards, the moon's going to make a trine to Mars. Like, it's okay to feel crabby. It's okay to be upset. Like, that's the other thing. Like, when it comes to the victim mentality versus victimization, you are more than allowed to be, like, to have your times of grief and to have your times of sorrow and anger. We're emotional beings. Like, we're going to go through those phases. It's totally okay. Especially, too, like, after this eclipse and that moon trines Mars on Friday, it's like, it's okay to sit in your shit for a minute and to acknowledge it. Like when you don't acknowledge it and you put it off is like when that builds into resentment and all this other stuff. But on Friday, I think after this eclipse and the moon starts to wane a little bit and trines Mars, it's like, hey, that was really hard. And maybe you need to like, for example, like maybe you just need to go get some ice cream, pull a Joe Biden, but, go get some ice cream, go take a walk, go take a nap. Like nothing's better than crying and then taking a nap. Ugh, the sleep. That's how I look at this. So kind of emotionally turbulent. We get to Saturday. The moon's going to make a trine to Neptune. Then it's going to enter Sagittarius and square Saturn. Again, I actually have been a fan of the moon Saturn square stuff, but the moon will make a trine to Neptune, feeling a little bit lost and emotional. Trining Neptune, like idealizing situations or, romanticizing situations, maybe even being a little bit nostalgic about the past. But then the moon goes into Sag, where it's again like we want like this freedom, we want like this, exploration, we want to run away. But then the moon square Saturn, it's like, again, wherever you go, there you are. That's something I'm really loving about this Sag Pisces stuff with Saturn squaring it is like, you can't just run away. Like, even though it's fun, fucking love it. But as the moon goes into Sag squaring Saturn, it is like, if you want to escape, you have to like get rid of, you have to like transmutate, you have to like literally do like alchemy within yourself. Like if you want to like, it's not like escape yourself, like you are who you are. And I think what's so frustrating about so much of the current culture is like, you like, not that you can't be whoever you want to be, but it's like, it's complicated. You are who you are, but you can also be whoever you want at the same time. But what the point I'm trying to get to is there's this level of like people think that denying who they are is like self-acceptance. And that's just like so backwards to me. But I think as the moon goes into Sagittarius and square Saturn and Pisces, it's one of those things of like, not that you need to change who you are on a physical level, but much more of like, okay, like for me, like I can identify as an angry person and I don't want to be that. So who do I have to become to not be that? What do I have to do? How do I have to discipline myself? Because I can't just run away, start a new identity, move on to things. But like I have to do the personal work that allows me to not always label myself that way. And so that's how I look at this moon and Sagittarius squaring Saturn and Pisces. Like again, wherever you go, there you are. You can't really run away from things. And we just need that right now. That's why Saturn's in Pisces, because clearly we need it. And we get to Sunday, Venus goes into Cancer. Venus in Cancer is literally one of my favorite transits, and I don't know why it doesn't get enough hype. Like it's not like in a day chart, technically has triplicity. I can't remember what decan. I think Venus rules a decan in Cancer. I can't remember, but Venus in Cancer, like Mars in Cancer is hangry. Venus in Cancer is like post dopamine rush after a meal. Like loosen up the belt, you feel full, you feel good, you're with good company, and it's just nice. Like one of my favorite things in life is the silence when you're eating a meal with people. I live for that. Like, you know, everyone's talking, everyone's chatting, and everyone sits down to eat a meal, and then there's just a moment where everyone's quiet and just enjoying being a human being. That's how I look at Venus in Cancer. It's very intimate. It's very nostalgic. It's very emotional. It's very safe and secure. And I think as Venus goes into Cancer, there is this level of like wanting and enjoying and putting value on safety and security and nourishment and being protected and safe and comfortable. And that's going to feel nice after Mars being in there, where it's been like crabby. We've been feeling unsafe, insecure, feeling very defensive. And Venus is like, you know, I'm feeling now protected. I'm feeling and I'm valuing and I'm enjoying this feeling more. So I think that's really nice. But we get into next week. We got a lot going on next week. The sun's going to conjoin Uranus. We got a lot of sparks flying. Venus is going to trine Saturn. Love that for the water stuff. Mars will trine Neptune. That'll be a little bit weird. But then Mercury stations direct. Everything kind of gets solved. And then like we're really off to the races with the rest of this year after that. So I don't have too many final thoughts. I think I was kind of clear about everything. In fact, I maybe even went a little bit more on certain things than maybe I was prepared for. But with all that being said, I love and appreciate you guys. Be sure to check out the Patreon. It really does support me. I got an editor I got to pay for now, so that helps with that. Make sure you like this video if you like this content. Comment, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, and I'll be seeing you next week.